Hi, I'm Dom.
I'm Steve.
I'm James.
And together we are the Yeasty Boys. So we all met at Ice and Fire Con. Steve and I were both at the first Ice and Fire Con. Steve, do you remember how we met at Ice and Fire Con?
I do vaguely. I think you tell the story way better, but
Whoa, I was gonna say you should tell it. You should tell the story of the first time we met.
uh, I remember you injured your ankle. I'm
It
not
was
sure how.
it's my lower back. It was my
Oh,
lower
you're
back
back.
trying to dance in chainmail.
Yeah, and I uh, helped you get to your cabin, threw you over my shoulder like a continental soldier.
You were yeah, a continental soldier or maybe bearded priest of Norvus, because you were in full aerial hota and you
That's true. That's true.
slung me over your shoulder and carried me back.
Over my
Uh
breath.
over your manly shoulders. Steve and I, yeah, I can remember was that the year you like catered breakfast?
Possibly. I think every year we kind of did that.
Every year. If you know Ice and FireCon, you know the Chicago cabin's always doing some kind of party. I can remember going up to your guys' cabin because you were like up the stairs, right? Going up to your guys' cabin, and then later needing you in my time of need, and we've been friends ever since.
Right.
If you've seen Steve and I around Ice and FireCon, we're probably repeating random stuff people have said until it's a catchphrase because we have a knack for
And
doing that.
we also may or may not be squatting, as we are the co-inventors of the squad of Ice and Fire.
Oh, I'm spinning. I'm spinning.
Squat for you, king.
Squat for you.
Squat for you, king.
So I was living in Indiana at the time, and after I went to Ice and FireCon, I brought my memories of Ice and FireCon back to James, who I knew from Indiana, and he promised to come out the next year. James and I, James is a real Song of Ice and Fire head. I feel like you read the books like faster than anyone I know. I remember you read like 1 through 4 in like it was like 2 weeks or something, right?
I skipped the Cersei part. That's
Oh,
what I got.
don't admit that. And then James and I always used to James and I used to play the Game of Thrones board game, and James would come over with like the youth soccer cooler that like you mix like the powder Gatorade with hose water in. He would take one of those, strap it to the back of his bike, fill it with sangria, and that's how you know the Dornish had arrived to play the Game of Thrones board game. If James is hauling, if James is hauling the big soccer cooler of sangria. So James made a promise to come out the next year, and at year 2 of Ice and FireCon, the three of us all met. Steve, can you remember when you and James met? Because I have very strong memories of the two of you and grapefruit liqueur.
Yeah. I can actually tell you the exact moment I remember even seeing James, because you were in the cabin right across from us, I believe, or
Right?
maybe the one. Yeah, and yeah, the one with the hot tub. If I'm not mistaken.
The one with the hot
Um,
tub.
and I
There's
remember
a story.
walking down the stairs of that cabin that Keith and I stayed in,
Mhm.
and just seeing you walk by. I don't know if you were in like your Thorman cosplay or something, but you were in some sort of, and I see you, and then I see James, who's if anybody that knows James and has had the pleasure of watching him dance, he's like he's like air. He's like a feather on his coat. Um, so I remember just seeing James like very very sprightly step behind you, and that was the first time I saw James, and I believe we had our treasure chest cooler, if I'm not mistaken, and that's probably where the grapefruit stuff came from.
Yeah. I remember James calling it the bounties of farthest lease.
Yeah.
Oh, good time.
So we the three of us have been fast friends ever since. If you've seen Steve and James together at Ice and FireCon, it's probably Skelly night, and they're probably cooking infinity of something and giving it out for free, which makes them my two favorite people. I still think about like you made like Cubano sliders the one time. Oh man, I still think about all the great things you do in the kitchen while everyone is while everyone is raising up a libation. You're legends of the con. So when the pandemic hit and we were all sheltering in place, locking down, a lot of us started baking. I know a lot of people started making sourdough bread. A lot of people like were getting a lot of practice in like making loaves of bread, etc. And I was always posting my loaves of bread to Instagram, and Steve was up in my DMs all the time until Steve was showing me his garden and his bakes until one day we decided to collaborate. The two of us got on Zoom and started baking together. We like picked the time and we like put our loaves in the oven at the same time, started baking together. I think that only went for a couple weeks before Steve said we got to get James in on this. Even though James is on the West Coast now, we still time zones be damned, get together every Monday night and we either bake or cook something and share it with each other. And collectively, we are the Yeasty Boys. I always assumed that Steve is MCA. No, Steve is Ad Rock. I'm MCA. James, you're Mike D. You are Sel, the puckish rogue of the group. That's official. I'm James Lively and I get respect. So, now that you know our origin story and you know our bonds in fandom and bread, we have a very special presentation that we're putting together tonight. That is, a little bit skit and a little bit tutorial. James, you got more to add?
Yes. The great Lord Stannis will see some mysteries, and we'll have a little fireside chat with something in the flames, but you'll have to come closer, look closer, yeah. Even closer. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Roll that beautiful bread footage. All right. Enjoy. Wait, James, what is it called? A feast of
Yeast of flames, baby.
A feast of flames. A yeast of flames.
A
yeast for crows.
A yeast for crows.
Oh
wait, can we call it a yeast for crows?
And with that, enjoy our special presentation of A Yeast for Crows.
Woo!
Woo! My men are starving. My rightful bannermen are vowed to false claimants. All I can think to do is stare out this window ominously.
These are dark times, my lord. You are the Lord of Light's champion. Look into the flames, my lord, and tell me, what do you see?
Look into the flames, what will I see in the flames? I see boys. No, men. Men with dark loaves, cauldrons that can feed thousands of men. My men.
Come closer, my lord, and I will tell you a tale of the blackest of breads, forged in the flames of our Lord of Light.
What does this fool know of the higher mysteries? How will this help feed my men?
Trust in the Lord of Light, and he will not lead you astray. Jingle Bell may be the phrase fool, but he is a loyal servant to our cause. Don't burn your bridges, Lord Stannis.
Then let us begin. Black bread filled the belly of Sir Duncan and Little Egg as they feasted at Lord Butterwell's wedding tourney at Whitewalls. It sustained them after fleeing the failed Second Blackfire Rebellion. When a serving man placed the loaf of black bread on the cloth in front of them, Dunk was grateful for the distraction. He sawed open the loaf lengthwise, hollowed out the bottom for a trencher, and ate the top. It was stale, but compared with salt beef, it was custard. At least it did not have to be soaked in ale or milk or water to make it soft enough to chew.
What book is he even reading from?
He speaks of a great prophecy, my lord.
Sir Dunk has been dead for many years. In fact, my Maester Crescent actually told me the real story about how Duncan the Tall died, and I told me he found it. It actually is very interesting. It has to deal with...
Black bread sustained Lord Warg Bran Stark as he hosted the harvest feast in Winterfell. Lord Wyman had brought 20 casks of fish from White Harbor packed in salt and seaweed, whitefish and winkles, crabs and mussels, clams, herring, cod, lobster and lampreys. There was black bread and honey cakes and oaten biscuits. There were turnips and peas and beets, beans and squash, and huge red onions. There were baked apples and berry tarts, and pears poached in strong wine. Wheels of white cheese sat at every table, above and below the salt, and flagons of hot spiced wine. And chilled autumn ale was passed up and down the tables.
What does the Stark boy have to do with any of this?
Shh, my lord.
Champion of lore, Lord Stannis Baratheon, and the subdued wildlings were nourished with the dark bread. Having knelt, the wildlings shuffled past the ranks of the Black Brothers at the gate. John had detailed Horse and Staten and a half a dozen others to lead them through the wall with torches. On the far side, bowls of hot onion soup awaited them, and chunks of black bread and sausage. Clothes as well, cloaks, breeches, boots, tunics, good leather gloves. They would sleep on piles of clean straw, with fires blazing to keep the chills at night at bay. The king was nothing if not methodical. Sooner or later, however, Tormund Giantsbane would assault the wall again, and when the hour came, John wondered whose side Stannis' new subjects would choose. You can give them land and mercy, but the free folk choose their own kings, and it was Mance they chose. Not you.
The wildlings will bend the knee. I will order 10,000 loaves of bread baked if that's what it takes. Fire the ovens! Wait, actually, I'm still quite unclear how to bake a loaf of bread at this point.
Into the flames, my lord, and tell me what you see.
Look deep into the flames, and the Lord of Light will show you how to bake a loaf of bread. Hi, I'm Dom from the Yeasty Boys, and I'm going to show you how to make a loaf of bread. It's going to be like a nice, rich, brown loaf, the way they would probably eat it in King's Landing. And this is what you're going to do to start. We're going to make like a little bit of a sponge. So what that means is you're going to start off with 1 cup of flour. All right, take your cup of flour. And then you're going to throw that into your mixing bowl. You're doing great. We're really going to get this done. I'm super proud of you. Next, you're going to add your yeast to your cup of flour right now. Most times in like an American supermarket context, a yeast measurement is a packet. If you're not going by the packet, I'm saying it's like 2 tablespoons. Then you're going to add a beer. And of course, we're making like a sort of dark loaf. I want to use something like brown and rich. You can use any stout or a porter. I'm using a Lucky 7 porter from Evo Brewing in Salisbury, Maryland, from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, which I guess is like Crackclaw Point for America. Anyway, this is basically substituting the water in the bread for beer. So you're going to use this nice dark beer and add it to your yeast and wheat. So we're just getting the yeast started right here. That's all we're doing. So you just need to add 1 cup of beer. That means you have most of a bottle of beer left over. Next, you want to add something for the yeast to eat. A lot of people use sugar. I like to use honey if I'm making a normal loaf of bread, but since we're trying to get a dark brown color, right here I'm using molasses. Then you want to cover it, and congratulations, you have to wait a half an hour with a half bottle of beer. Drink it, or give it to a friend who likes beer. After you've let it sit covered for about a half hour, the yeast should be blooming. So you're going to add 3 cups of flour, and you're going to start mixing it around. You would add water right now in a regular recipe. Let's add a bottle of beer. And really mix it up.
I can't do this one-handed. Sorry.
All right. I've cheated a little bit because I did it holding it with 2 hands, but if it's getting a little too sticky, add flour. Basically, my test is, would you sit on it? If so, you're ready to start kneading it with your hands.
When I talk to most people about like why they don't make their own bread, a lot of it is like a time-consuming thing. Oh, you got to knead it yourself. This, of course, goes for people without a bread machine, without a KitchenAid like stand mixer. I do not have. However, let me tell you about the joy of kneading your own bread when you make bread from scratch. All right? Well, let's talk about the science first. First, what you're doing is you're activating all the strands of gluten, which is like fun, cool science, but you also do it with a fist. So it's powerful. But I like to think of it this way. Kneading the dough is a little bit like Feast for Crows. I know you just added all the ingredients, and at some point you're going to have this amazing bread. But this is a step where you go, why am I even doing this? This seems like the boring part, okay? This is the part of kneading the bread, or this is the part of making bread that doesn't feature Danny, Tyrion, or John. And you're like, why should I even do this? Should I like, I don't know, find some other food to make instead and see if I can skip this part? However, just like A Feast for Crows is the second best book in the series, this is, next to eating the bread, this is the best part of the bread. Because it's really how everything comes together. And it sets up everything to rise so perfectly. All the time you spend punching is just going to make your bread look and taste and feel better. All the work you put in this crucial step is what makes beautiful bread you see posted on Instagram. It's what makes it so beautiful. This is the part of the step I'm doing right now with this bread is Brienne wandering the Riverlands with Septon Maribald. And the first time you make bread, you're gonna go, why do I care what this old man has to say? And every time you go back and make bread, you really go, this is actually the most important part of the series. This is where all the hard work comes in, and this is where things are gonna pay off, get set up. So yeah, Feast for Crows is very good, and so is kneading your own bread.
So once it's stable, I'm going to put a little caraway seed in it. You can do roasted garlic, rosemary, whatever. Just a little, I like a little seasoning. But we're going to let it sit for, I'd say about 2 hours. Let it proof. Let it rise. Then you're going to come back to it. And you're going to see if it rose. Hey, look at that. Mine rose a little bit. I'm going to walk away for like 2 hours, leave it covered, and come back. And let's take a grand reveal. Wow. Man, this is looking like a loaf. Oh my God. All right, so my loaf of bread is coming along pretty well. I'm going to preheat the oven to about 450. That's going to be about 45 minutes, which is a little longer than normal bread, but we got a little fancy with it, didn't we? All right, so you're going to get your cutting board out. You're going to, before you put it in the oven, you're going to lay it on the cutting board. And then what you're going to do is you're going to slash the top of the bread with a knife or a razor blade or, I don't know, theoretically like a very sharp squeegee, like for vinyl. But you can use your trusty kitchen knife. Now, why do you cut the top of the bread like this? It's not just because it looks cool, and it does look cool, and you feel like you have Valyrian steel sword. No, what you're doing here, because of how fast the bread is going to expand while it's in the oven, it's going to like expand and crack somewhere. Now, what you're doing when you slice the top, you're telling it this is where you're going to expand and crack along the ridge I've created. And you're basically just guiding the bread to expand in that direction. Because if you don't do that, it could crack on like the sides horizontally, and then you can't really make a sandwich with it. You need to slice it up top in order to preserve the shape of the bread. I learned this the hard way after many a Monday night with the Yeasty Boys, but my breads have turned out very well since. All right, I didn't get any footage of actually putting it in the oven, but like I said, 450 for about 45 minutes, which, again, a little longer than normal, but we've got beer, we've got all types of cool stuff in here, and it's going to be cool. Now, let's see what the bread looks like when we take it out of the oven. Holy crap, look at that. We made a nice brown loaf of bread. And it could be even darker. I know I used like regular all-purpose flour. I used like beer and molasses to try to bring like the brown richness in. But if you want to get it like a super black bread, like at the wall or something, if you can find rye flour, get your hands on some rye flour and it'll only get darker from here. But yeah, this is like the white flour we used with all the other ingredients. And it came out looking this rich, toasty brown. It looks beautiful. And I hope yours looks just as good. Fun trick for when the bread is done, you should be able to flip it over and tap it on its underside, and you get like a nice hollow thunk, thunk, thunk. Steve from the Yeasty Boys taught me that. This is me showing you. Yeah. See, it's like a nice kind of charred color, but not burnt on the bottom, and you get a hollow noise when you tap it. All right, there is your King's Landing loaf of brown bread. It looks so good. That was such a good night when I ate it. Oh, look at that butter. And I had a little bit of the leftover beer to eat it with, which is all good as far as I'm concerned. Now, of course, we can do this straight up Dunkin' Egg style. And by that, I mean you can saw off a heel. Just get a big chunk. Make sure if you want to eat it like Dunk would, get a big chunk of the heel off, and then scoop out the insides. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna pour your soup in the hole you've made in the bread, and this is how Dunk eats it in the pot shops of King's Landing. Enjoy, everyone.
Egg, eat your soup unless you want a clout in the ear.
Stanner men cannot live on bread alone. The fires of our Lord heat the cauldron that feeds the world with a bowl of brown. Down below the salt, Dunk found Sir Kyle drowning his woes in Lord Butterwell's ale. His trencher was filled with a thick stew made with food left over from the night before. A bowl of brown, they called such fare in pot shops in King's Landing. Sir Kyle plainly had no stomach for it. Untouched, the stew had grown cold, and a film of grease was glistening atop the bowl.
These men are fools. Food is not for enjoying. Food is to power the muscles, to lift the sword, to slay your enemies, and for nothing else.
I'm sure Salador-san could bring us some pentoshi spices to get spicy.
No. Spice weakens the resolve. I will not allow it. Continue, clown boy.
Braun grinned. There's a pot shop I know in Flea Bottom that makes a savory bowl of brown. All kinds of meat in it, I hear. I make certain I never eat there. Tyrion spurred to a trot. He wanted a bath, and the hotter, the better.
Curse the Lannisters. And tell your Lord of Light I will not dine on the flesh of my men.
This is not Flea Bottom, my lord. I'm sure we could scrounge up some onions somehow.
In the bottom, there were pot shops, and along the alleys, where huge tubs of stew had been simmering for years, and you could trade a half of a bird for a heel of yesterday's bread and bowl of brown. And they'd even stick the other half in the fire and crisp it up for you, so long as you plucked the feathers yourself. Arya would have given anything for a cup of milk and lemon cake. But the brown wasn't so bad. It usually had barley in it, and chunks of carrot and onion and turnip. And sometimes even an apple, with a film of grease swimming on top. Mostly she tried not to think about the meat. The stew sustained the Stark child, who killed the Night King with a Valyrian steel dagger.
This is not canon. The Wolf Girl is not the Lord of Light's champion. I am.
Why would this girl kill the Night King? It makes no narrative sense.
I will make a stew which will imprison winter itself. The Night King will be mine. Tell me this recipe. I must know.
So let's make a bowl of brown. First thing you need to do is secure some meat. It can be any kind of meat. No matter what meat you use, it's not going to matter. Because if you use pork or beef or whatever meat you found in the alley in Flea Bottom, or if there's a bard that you can't get to shut up, no matter what it is, you're just going to tell him it's chicken. This is chicken. Eat it. Next, you're going to take your meat and you're going to give it a real big chop. Just like that. And there you have your stew meat for bowl of brown. All right, next you want to put it in a pot. This is like a cast iron, but really you just need the thickest bottom you can find because you don't want the bottom of the stew burning. Look at that. That's what your browned meat should look like after it's been in there and after it's cooked. Looks beautiful. Looks like it's probably just chicken. Next, what you're going to do, all of browning that meat has rendered the fat off of it. So the bottom of your pot should look like this. Glistening. That's looking good. All right. What we're going to do next is we're going to make a roux. All right. A roux is the best way to thicken a soup. So this is what we're going to do. It's three things. It is fat, flour, and effort. You're going to add your flour to the rendered fat at the bottom of your pan, and then you're going to whisk it. And you're just going to continually whisk it. I'm going to say Steve probably took about 25 or 30 minutes on his. His is sort of like a blonde roux. You're just going to whisk it. Make sure that flour does not burn or else you have to start over, okay? Basically, the magic point is when it stops smelling like flour, you're coming close. But this is your thickening agent, your roux at the bottom of the pan. All right, next you're going to add garlic and your spice blend. as much garlic as you want. The spice blend, however, closely guarded secret. In Flea Bottom, looks like we've got sage, rosemary, red pepper flakes. Normally you're not supposed to tell people about what's in the bowl of brown, especially the spices. Last person I saw ask what spices were in the bowl of brown. Well, this is what happened to him. And that's what sent Carl Tanner to the wall. Remember Carl Tanner? Remember him? Show only villain in like seasons 3 and 4? Carl Tanner from Flea Bottom? Yeah, wasn't he interesting? Huh. Yeah. Played by Bern Gorman. Remember a famous character actor, Bern Gorman? Bern? That's a first name you can have? Bern Gorman? Anyway, yeah. Basically whatever spices you want. All right, put your spices in your roux, and then you're gonna add your chicken back into the pot. Sounds like a plan. And then you're gonna take a dark beer, could be the same one you used in your loaf of bread, a stout or a porter, and you're gonna add it to. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna give it a good long simmer. The longer the better, low heat. Take it off the flame overnight. And after you've taken it off the flame overnight, all the fat should congeal, and you've got this nice kind of film on the top of it. That's perfect. That's how the bowl of brown is going to get its characteristic flavor. Because when you reheat that the next day, it's going to make everything taste like a big, beautiful, indistinguishable stew. While you're heating all of this layer of fat back up, you're going to take your vegetables, carrots, onion, leek, potato, turnips. Again, in King's Landing, if you ask, they'll probably say all of it is neeps. So throw your neeps at all into the stew to cook. We'll chop them up first. Hi. And then throw them into the stew to cook, and your stew is ready once the vegetables have softened. And that's when you're going to have your bowl of brown. Don't forget to cut off a heel of your loaf of bread that you made right before this and enjoy the pot shop in King's Landing. Thank you, everybody. We are the Yeasty Boys, and we wouldn't be cooking together over Zoom every Monday if it weren't for Ice and Fire Con. So this is Dom on behalf of Steve and James saying you are all our favorite people in the world. Even the people who we haven't met in person. If you're watching this video, it's because you wish you were at Ice and Fire Con, and that makes us friends already. So we love you all, miss you all, and please tell us how your bowl of brown and bread turned out, because we all really want to know. All right, on behalf of Mike D, aka James, MCA, aka Steve, and Adrock, me. I think I got them right in the photo. Good night. 7 blessings.
Okay. Guys ready?
Let's go.
We're going to go Dom, Steve, James in that order.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hi, everybody. I'm Dom.
I'm Steve.
Steve?
Did you
Steve?
not hear me?
Steve went.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Are we leaving that in? Are we leaving that in? That blooper reel.
Black bread filled the belly of Sir Duncan as I forgot my line. In the bottom there were pot shops along the alleys where tubs of huge stews, Having knelt, the wildlings shuffled past the ranks of the Black Brothers at the gate. John had detailed horse and Staten and half a dozen...
So fucking serious?
Can I show the camera? Yeah, look at that. Look at that. I did that.
Trust in the Lord of Light. and he will not lead you astray. Jingle Bell may be the phrase fool, but he is a loyal servant to our cause. Don't burn your bridges, Lord Stannis.
I'm recording on this computer now, but I'm gonna edit all of this down to make it snappy. Okay, so don't worry about messing up. I'm gonna edit this video, or like, in case you have to belch because you're drinking too much basil mead. It's really good. I like it a lot.
Tell me this recipe so that I may crush my enemies. James, you're fucking insane.
Black bread sustained the Lord Warg, Bran Stark, as he hosted the harvest winter feast of the Warg.
All of James's stage directions just say Stannis disdainfully. You think?